All right, let's get into it. You know, most business books, they kind of give you this neat, tidy formula for success. But the one we're talking about today, it throws all that out the window. We're diving into Ben Horowitz's The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And trust me, it's a raw, unfiltered look at what it's actually like to lead when everything, and I mean everything, is on fire. So let's unpack the lessons he learned in the trenches. I love this quote from Horowitz's partner, Mark Andreessen, because it just nails it, right? Euphoria and terror. That's it. That's the entire spectrum. This book isn't about the glamorous startup dream. Nope. It's all about the brutal fight to keep that dream from turning into an absolute nightmare. So let's dig into that idea, the hard thing. What does he actually mean by that? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's about tackling the stuff that has no easy answer. Yeah, Horowitz makes this point over and over again. There is no recipe. He's not here to give you a 5-step plan. See, the hard things are hard because there's no formula. The whole reason he wrote this book was to share his story, to talk about the messy, painful, gut-wrenching struggles that, let's be honest, every leader is going to face sooner or later. And to really get his lessons, you've got to understand the journey he went on. So let's take a look at just how fast the dream of the dot-com boom became a total waking nightmare for him and his company, LoudCloud. Okay, look at this timeline. It's insane, right? It just shows the pure chaos of it all. In 1995, he's riding high at Netscape, thinking they're building a whole new economy. Fast forward a few years, he starts his own company, LoudCloud, right as that whole economy completely implodes. By 2001, they're bleeding cash, investors are running for the hills, and he's forced into what someone literally called the IPO from hell. This is the fire where all his ideas on leadership were forged. And all of that chaos, it led him to this core idea he calls the struggle. And listen, this isn't just having a bad quarter. No. This is a full-blown existential crisis. It's when the walls are closing in, you're questioning every decision you've ever made, and you're wondering if you're even cut out for this. The struggle is where the real leaders are made, but it's also where most people just completely break. It's really the heart of the whole book. All right, so you're in the struggle. What do you do? How do you lead when you're on the brink? Well, Horowitz's experiences give us some seriously powerful and, frankly, some pretty unconventional advice. Let's get into a couple of the big ones. Okay, put yourself in his shoes for a second. Imagine this. It is your very first earnings call as a public company CEO. The quarter itself, it's okay, but you know deep down there's no way you're going to hit your numbers for the whole year. So what's the play? Do you try to soften it, spin it a little and just hope for a miracle? Or do you just rip the Band-Aid off and probably destroy whatever tiny shred of credibility you have? And the advice he got from his controller is just classic. If you were going to eat shit, don't nibble. I mean, how great is that? It gets right to the core of his philosophy. When you have bad news, you deliver all of it. Right now, you take all the pain at once. Why? Because when you're in a crisis, that kind of brutal, painful honesty, that's the only currency you have left. You try to spin it, you're just digging a deeper hole. And this leads to another huge idea in the book. Leadership isn't just one thing. Horowitz makes this brilliant distinction between a peacetime CEO and a wartime CEO. Think about it. The peacetime CEO, they're focused on expanding the market, building a great culture, thinking long-term. But the wartime CEO, they're in a fight for survival. They have to be paranoid, make incredibly tough calls with almost no input, and sometimes they even have to create conflict just to keep the ship from sinking. Knowing which situation you're in and when you need to switch modes, that's everything. But here's the thing. Horowitz argues that the biggest, toughest battles aren't against your competitors or a bad market. Nope. The real war is the one that's happening right between your own ears. So that brings up a really interesting question he poses. What is the single most difficult skill for a CEO to master? I mean, is it strategy? Is it fundraising? Hiring the right people? Well, his answer is probably not what you'd expect. He says it's none of that stuff. He argues pretty convincingly that the hardest skill by a long shot is managing your own psychology. It's about keeping your head on straight when you're bouncing between feeling like you're on top of the world and feeling like a total failure. It's about not letting that immense pressure just completely crush you. And if you want to see why that's so incredibly hard, just look at this matrix. This thing is brilliant. It shows one of the biggest psychological traps any leader can fall into. It's all about the social pressure to make the popular call, not necessarily the right one. Just look at that bottom right box.
If you go with what everyone else wants and you're wrong, you get minimal blame, but the company pays the price. But if you go against the crowd and you're wrong, everyone remembers and you're fired. That takes real courage, and that's exactly why managing your own head is so critical.
So after all this, after surviving years in the struggle, building a company from nothing, and then selling it for over $1 billion, what's the big takeaway? Well, it all comes down to a really simple but incredibly profound philosophy. He shares this quote from his old boss at Netscape, a guy named Jim Barksdale, and it pretty much became Horowitz's own guiding star. We take care of the people, the products, and the profits, in that order. See that? People first. He says it's the hardest part of the job, but if you can nail that, everything else, the great products, the profits, it all tends to fall into place. So why is that people first thing so important? I mean, really, why? Because things always go wrong. It's inevitable. And when the you-know-what hits the fan, having a great culture isn't just a nice to have, it's a full-on survival mechanism. Think about it. In a company with a bad culture, the second things get tough, your best people are out the door. But in a great company, they stick around. They fight with you. They help you get through the struggle. That can literally be the difference between your company living and dying.
Look, at the end of the day, Horowitz is clear. There's no magic formula for the hard things. There just isn't. But he says that when he meets CEOs who've actually made it, who've succeeded against all odds, he asks them how they did it. And you know what? The great ones all have a surprisingly similar answer. They say, I didn't quit. So really, the final question the book leaves you with isn't if you'll face the struggle, because you will. The real question is, when you're in it, what are you going to do?